encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network.
Hello and welcome to Wifey Wednesdays, a podcast for women who are seeking to be the best wives they can be. I'm your host, Emily Hatfield, and this is the show where the plan is always to do things God's way, especially our marriages. Today's episode falls into the positive category, and for that, I am thankful, especially after coming off of bad advice. This example that we're given today in the woman of Hannah is a remarkable example of what it looks like to pray. Now, we're all familiar, I'm sure, with the idea of praying. We may ourselves be women who are dedicated to prayer. But Hannah's prayer in particular is a powerful example for me, and it reminds me to reshape my own ideas and my own prayer life so that I can make it look a little more like this. Now, really, we're going to look at two of Hannah's prayers. First, we start with the one that we're probably most familiar with, and that is the prayer that she offers to the Lord as she is desperately seeking to have a baby. In 1 Samuel 1, we learn that Hannah is one of two wives of Elkanah. She is the preferred wife. He loves her deeply, and he longs to comfort her. He tells her, "Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" And he is likely a very good husband. But there is a part of Hannah that is lacking, that is hurting, that is grieving. And no, a child and a husband, they're two very different things. She can be completely satisfied in her marriage and still feel a sense of lack and sadness over her barren womb. It seems that this is made especially awful because Elkanah's other wife, Peninnah, would mistreat Hannah and provoke her and make her feel bad for not having children. Now, this is purely speculation, but could it be that Hannah was Elkanah's first wife and Peninnah was taken when Hannah couldn't have children? I don't know. Maybe this is why Elkanah loves Hannah more. Maybe this is part of why Peninnah is so awful to Hannah. Perhaps she feels a lot like Leah, who wasn't the favored wife. Either way, despite circumstance, we all make choices on how we're going to act. And just because someone treats us in one way doesn't give us justification for treating them in a different way. So, year after year, Peninnah is mistreating Hannah. This is even happening around the time of sacrifice to the Lord, according to verse 7. So, as a complete aside, and just a little freebie for this episode, can we all have a moment to not be Peninnahs and make people's coming together as an assembly to worship a hard thing? Because we are prone to gossip, to mistreat others, to be cliquey with our friend group, make people feel like outsiders or less than. Can we just not? Can we stop? Being Peninnahs, not a good look for God's people. Instead, our worship ought to help other people be drawn to Him, to worshiping Him with joy, not leading others to worship through weeping and heartache because we've made coming together to sacrifice to the Lord something that's miserable. Okay, like I said, freebie, we're back to Hannah. She is heartbroken. She won't eat. She's weeping. She's silently praying outside the temple. O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. Okay, so Hannah isn't simply praying, she's vowing. She's promising God that if he grants her this request, she's not going to be using this blessing in a selfish way. She's going to give Samuel back to the Lord. She has already purposed in her heart to give this highly longed for son back. Now, isn't this a beautiful picture of the heart of God? Didn't God send his own son, knowing that it was ultimately to offer him as a gift through a cruel sacrifice on the cross? Jesus wasn't sent as a means of drawing people to some physically glorious king, but as a servant, as a sacrifice. Sending Jesus wasn't about God, but about drawing people to him and forgiving them and making a way for them. It was selfless. It was a gift. And this is the mindset of Hannah. Give me a son, but give me a son to use for your glory. I will give him back. And she does. After Samuel is weaned, she takes her young son to the house of the Lord at Shiloh, and she tells the priest Eli, "For this child I have prayed, and the Lord granted my petition that I made to him. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is lent to the Lord." And so Hannah leaves her son and spends her year away from him, visiting him only occasionally while he is spending his life ministering at the tabernacle. How profound, how inspiring, and how much toe-stepping, because here's the thing. My prayers are often focused on me and not focused on God. My prayers are often focused on the outcome I want, not focused on what outcome is going to most glorify God. Yes, I may pray specifically like Hannah did, but I don't know that I'm praying specifically for the things I need or want in my desperation to be used for God's glory, first and foremost. Often, first and foremost, I'm focused on myself. But Hannah was always focused on the Lord. Yes, she wanted a child, but she wasn't going to use this as a means to shut Peninnah up or to have as a companion all of her days. The Lord would provide, and then he would be continued sustenance for her when she gave that child back to him. And then, that's plenty to learn from Hannah, but then she prays again in 1 Samuel 2, after leaving her son, this prayed for son, at the tabernacle. Here's what she says. Hannah prayed and said, "My heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord, for there is none besides you. There is no rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble bind on strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry have ceased to hunger. The barren has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in darkness. For not by might shall a man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Against them he will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. What a prayer. First, she speaks of the Lord at least 11 times. So says the Lord at least 11 times. Not counting when she says like he. 11 times she uses a reference to the Lord and then plus some for he. But only 4 times, 4 personal pronouns are used. Even though, right, she's praying, but 11 times it's the Lord. More than that, it's the pronouns about the Lord. 4 times she uses personal pronouns, but even then, even in those 4 instances, she is talking about how she is praising the Lord. Her prayer was God-focused, not self-focused. Her prayer was full of faith and trust. She believed all that she had heard of God. She regarded him as holy. She regarded him as the one with all knowledge and power, as the giver of life. She regarded him as the owner of everything. And she trusts that he will guard the feet of the faithful ones, that he will be the punisher of his adversaries, and that she not be the one that has to be in charge of vengeance. But also, here's Hannah being a prophetess too. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Well, hold up. There hasn't even been a king yet. This young boy of hers that she's just given back, actually, he's going to anoint Israel's first and second kings, even though he's going to lament the fact that Israel even wants a king other than God. But isn't Jesus the King of Kings and the anointed of God? Hannah is given such a gift in speaking of the righteous one to come, while having joy and grief in this hard moment of giving her son into God's control. So I say again, there is much to be learned and applied from these prayers of Hannah. In our distress and hardship, we can cry out to God, and we can have confidence to know that He hears us. If she didn't truly believe God listened, would she have gone through with her vow? If she didn't recognize God as holy and all-powerful, would she have given Him credit for the birth of Samuel? Would she have immediately had peace and relief after praying, before she'd even conceived? Yet here she is, praying in faith and knowing that she will have what she's asked. And then, praise to whom praise is due. She doesn't merely ask, she thanks. She returns to the subject of her prayer with praise. And I think that this is really an area where I struggle. I'm quick to ask God for things. I'm quick to plead on behalf of myself and for others. But perhaps it's not with that same urgency that I return with thanksgiving after the prayer has been heard and answered, whether in my favor or not. Sometimes I think I'm like the 9 lepers who didn't return to Jesus with thanksgiving instead of being the one who does. But Hannah, she gives her requests to God with full confidence, even in her brokenness, and then she returns with praise. She is also more prone to praise than asking. Her prayer of praise is so much longer than her initial request. These days, I think my balance leans in the other direction. I think I ask far more than I thank. And I want that to be different. I want my prayers to be saturated in praise for my Maker and Creator, for the Holy One who is always delivering me and protecting me and helping me and cleansing me. I want to be filled with words of adoration and praise, not merely full of requests. I'm thankful that we are told to make our requests made known to God. Let our requests be made known to God. I'm thankful that we aren't a burden to Him. I'm thankful that He doesn't weary from hearing the pleas of His children. And yet, I don't want to lean on His compassion and tenderness without acknowledging His faithfulness, His supremacy, His goodness. I want to put those things in balance. I've heard people say that we sometimes treat God like He's a cosmic genie, busy granting our requests. Now, I balk at that when I hear it, but if I examine my prayer life, sometimes I think maybe my prayer life reflects that ideology, even if I would never say that. I want to be more intentional about thanking God, about returning praise to Him, about acknowledging to Him how great and how good and how majestic He is. I want to spend more time in Hannah's second prayer so I can model my own life and my own prayer posture after that. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me as we've talked about another great example in Hannah and the power in a praying woman. I hope that you'll join me next time as we dive into yet another powerful, albeit negative, example. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, remember, love God, love your husband.